The number 2 team in the country versus a team who hasn't been ranked in 4 years. A perennial playoff contender versus what the hell's a postseason. In Ann Arbor, Jim Harbaugh's built and been perfecting what Matt Rule's working towards, and after back-to-back failed attempts to find a job in the NFL, he's stuck with 2 elite running backs, a future NFL QB, and once again, multiple stars on a loaded defense. The stories for these two coaches and these two programs couldn't be more different, and the expectations for each have been the same for years. One to compete for Big Ten championships, and the other to lose any meaningful game they play in. But this isn't just any meaningful game. This is the 100-year anniversary in Memorial Stadium. This is Heinrich Haarberg's third start after winning his first 2, and their new head coach comes into this one undefeated at home. Michigan was gifted their 2021 win in this stadium, but a lot of these starters remember that night and they'd give anything to redeem themselves here. So today, we'll talk about how these two match up, and you'll get my game preview and final score prediction. But what's up, guys? I'm Connor Hayden, and this is Corn Crazed. If you're a fan of Nebraska or the Big Ten, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss my live stream on Thursday with College Football with Sam. And if you think the Black Shirts can hold Michigan to less than 24 points, hit the like button and help us get to 1,000. But now, let's get into it.
Thompson winds up, goes deep, got a man, touchdown!
I haven't been to a home game yet, but I couldn't miss this one. So right after the game ends on Saturday, I'll be outside the stadium at the Legacy statue for about 20 minutes to meet as many of you guys as I can. And we did this last time I was in town, got to take a bunch of pictures, and I got to put a bunch of faces to YouTube names, which I thought was pretty cool. So if you're at the game, hopefully that'll be a spot that I get to meet you. Normally, for a matchup this big and this meaningful, there'd be a lot more national attention, but Nebraska's failure to win any of the last 17 games against top 25 teams has really killed every outsider's belief that they can get it done. The only coach to ever go positive against ranked opponents was Tom Osborne, and Bob Devaney managed to get to 500, but everybody else has struggled to compete on the bigger stage. Despite that terrible streak, Will Compton's coming back this weekend with Taylor Lewan, who played at Michigan, and they convinced Barstool to do their weekly college football show in Lincoln. So even though Fox and ESPN are at Duke and Colorado, there's still some pregame hype and excitement. And I'm not sure if you saw this on Twitter, but Dave Portnoy, who's the owner of Barstool, put out a video wearing this shirt they're selling that says "Make Nebraska Mediocre Again." And he talked about how excited he was to visit Lincoln for the first time, and that even though he swore he wouldn't do it till Nebraska was better, he decided to come so he could finally experience it. Anyway, the videos were pretty funny that he made because he's a Michigan fan and he just wants Nebraska to stop playing so bad. And it's a prime example of every opposing fan base and anybody who watches college football begging for Nebraska to get back to being relevant and, at the very least, a bowl team. And yes, I agree with the statement, make them mediocre again, because that's the first step in this process. This will be Michigan's third time traveling to Lincoln since Nebraska joined the Big Ten, and the last time they came, they were undefeated, ranked 9th in the country, but only won after Nebraska fumbled on their own 30, and they followed it up with a field goal to win it by 3. I remember watching it on my laptop in Paris in a hotel room at 4 a.m. and thinking how incredible the night game environment was, feeling like there was no way that they'd let another one-score loss happen since Martinez had the ball in the final minute and a half. But yeah, I've been waiting a long time for a legit shot at redemption. And these players have too. 5 starters on the defense were playing in that game, and the entire O-line outside of Ben Scott were on the field that night too. It's not a rivalry matchup, but anytime a top 25 team comes into your stadium, it has that feel. And when you play somebody ranked in the top 5, the stakes are even higher. A loss for Michigan this early would be brutal because they've still got a road trip to Penn State and their game against Ohio State. And to win the East, they'd probably have to win both those games. Until we get that 12-team format, every week's a playoff game for them. For Nebraska, a loss is expected, and it wouldn't derail the season. They've got 7 more games against some pretty average teams, but they only need to win 4 to make it to a bowl and call year 1 for Matt Rule a success. But what about a win? Could you imagine what would happen if they pulled off the upset? First thing, it'd snap that 17-game losing streak against ranked teams, and Matt Rule would have his first ranked win over a Power 5 school. Nebraska would be the favorite to win the West, right up there with Wisconsin, because the offensive solving their turnover issue would have been the missing piece to winning the games they should have. The doubts about Heinrich Harburg would be pushed to the side now that he's done something Jeff Sims failed to in his first two games and even in his last however many starts at Georgia Tech. This team's confidence would go through the roof. The fan base would be completely engaged again, and they'd start following this team as closely as they were these first 2 weeks. And the entire country would start taking interest in the program again. The risk reward for these two teams is like 99% in Nebraska's favor. There is no immediate reward for Michigan with a win. It's just another Saturday for them. But for a Nebraska team who everybody expects to lose, there is no risk, and the reward after an upset would be program defining and would completely change this team's trajectory. ESPN's FPI only gives it a 12% chance of happening, but we've already seen two double-digit underdog take down ranked teams this year, so to win at home this week isn't impossible. It's just going to take really good play calling and player execution. Since I'll be at the game this week and heading to a meetup right after, my live reaction might be 30 minutes late. But I know Adam Carricker gets his gut reactions up pretty damn quick. And since he's such a big supporter of our show, and CarrickerChronicles.com has been an amazing partner to help me put out a ton of free content, make sure that if you haven't yet, you head over to his new channel that I linked in the description box below and hit the subscribe button so you get notified as soon as he drops his reaction to whatever happens on Saturday against Michigan. I know before the season started, we all expected a dominant offense for Michigan with a dual threat QB and two all Big Ten backs, but we're 4 games in and they only rank 60th nationally after playing UNLV, East Carolina, and Bowling Green, who are all suspect on the opposite end. You look at the individual games for Blake Corum, and he's already broken one off for over 50 and averages 6 yards a carry, but the rushing total's only gone over 200 one time, and now they've got to take on the #1 rushing defense in the country that's holding teams to less than 50 yards a game. McCarthy and his receivers are looking as good as they ever have together. Outside of the Bowling Green game when he threw 3 picks and they still won by 25 with 13 minutes less in time of possession, they're passing it 20 to 30 times a game and completing almost 80% of them. Roman Wilson's the #1 target with 6 touchdowns and almost 300 yards on only 15 catches. But Cornelius Johnson's been a great #2 who's also had a 26-yard run out of the backfield that almost got him into the end zone. The O-line's only given up 3 sacks. JJ's had all day to throw it, and when he doesn't, he's great at getting outside the pocket. And since they know they can be just as effective running as they can passing it, it's been a pretty balanced attack. It's funny, so many teams play down to the level of their competition early in the season, and it would make you question how good they really are, as if the standard has to be to score 60 on these lower tier schools just to show you can, or to max out every depth piece in your lineup so they're prepared for a bigger moment. But they haven't done that. Outside of the 3 interception game and being down at half to Bowling Green, the offense has taken care of the ball and they've done what they needed to do to win. I think there's been a lot left to be desired, but Harbaugh knows who they are and what they have. So until they're challenged or forced into a situation, we'll probably continue to see the same methodical drives with underneath routes, a few runs, and the occasional deep shot. I'll tell you where I'm concerned. Just like Louisiana Tech last week, there are some really good playmakers who can shred the secondary if they miss a tackle. And they've got guys who move into open space as well while they wait for their QB to find them to pick up 15 to 20 yards a catch. Nebraska's DBs have been solid tacklers and match up well in man for one-on-one balls, but in zone, they've had some breakdowns that leave you questioning what they were seeing. I'm sure Nebraska's going to stop the run, and I could see another game where we see him held to less than 100 yards, but the challenge won't be a traditional run game. It'll be McCarthy winning with his legs if the back 7 are spread out all around the field. And if they do bring a spy to defend that QB run, then how much more room do these receivers have to make plays downfield or even go underneath for short games just to control the clock? I don't doubt Nebraska's defense and how good they can be, but the coverage, the tackling, and the pressure on the QB who's got an elite O-line protecting him is going to be the difference between a 24-point day or 41. On defense, they're the best Satterfield will have to prepare for all year. 30th in total D, 12th against the run, 7th against the pass, and #1 in scoring. Again, You got to take it with a grain of salt since they've played some really weak teams and they've never left the big house. But historically, they get big time playmakers and it's hard to score on them. The problem with Heinrich Harburg leading this offense is that they've been one dimensional. He took some shots downfield these last couple weeks, but you do that Saturday and you're asking for turnovers. My fear is that because Rutgers only had one big play last week on a slant that went for a score, and they had put up 24 and 35 on Power 5 teams the 2 weeks before, what'll that mean for Nebraska's offense? It's definitely a new look with a QB who doesn't turn it over 3 times a game, but he also hasn't been challenged the way he will this week. The Rutgers QB ran for 28 yards on 6 carries. Garcia at ECU ran it for 36, and UNLV's QB was sacked so many times, I don't even know what the true total was. Are any of those guys as good a runners as Harburg or Sims if he was to play some? Probably not, but they were all somewhat of a threat in the pass game, so at least the defenders were spread out a bit. I'm looking for reasons to get excited for the offense, but it feels like their best chance to score is on a broken play like a missed tackle or if they come up on some really good field position because of a turnover. I saw the spread opened at almost 3 touchdowns, so we got to talk about it. But before we do, I want to make sure that if you do want to bet on Nebraska, Michigan, or any of the NFL games this weekend, that you have a place to. Our sponsor for today's video is BroThrow, which is the best platform I use for betting on games since it's available in all 50 states. It doesn't require a deposit. There are no minimums or withdrawal requirements. And most importantly, you don't pay the 10% VIG that sportsbooks or other websites would charge you. We've had over 300 new Corn Crate subscribers join our group on BroThrow this month to start placing bets. So if you're betting on spreads, totals, or money lines somewhere else, you can join us for free at brothrow.com/GBR to start saving on the juice today. The line opened at 18.5 this week, and now it's sitting at 17, which at first glance looks like a pretty fair number. Michigan's only scoring about 30 a game as it is, and this week they're taking on a top 25 D in their first road game of the season. There's a world where Nebraska turns it over 3 times and only scores 10 points, but the more likely scenario is Michigan controlling the clock, scoring the 20 to 27 point range, and letting Nebraska hang around and get at least 2 touchdowns by the end. If you like the D to bounce back after looking sloppy against La Tech, then you probably like him to keep it a 2-score game all the way through. But if you thought another weekend letting the team go for almost 300 yards in the air is another sign of things to come, then I can see why you'd be worried about seeing a finish like we did in Colorado. The totals dropped from 44 to 39, so the true Vegas score prediction is something like 31 to 13, but that's only 6 or 7 more points than the rest of these bummy schools were scoring when they had to go on the road. This game's in Lincoln. Harburg's on a hot streak and only getting more comfortable in his role, and even though I don't have a lot of faith in the offense, I still feel good about getting close to that 20-point mark. Michigan's offense is going to score. The question is, how fast? And can the D find a way to get a takeaway somewhere in there? I guess Michigan gets to 27 no matter what, and the pass defense will determine if it stays close enough to give Nebraska a shot to pull an upset. History says that this is going to be another beatdown with a few glimmers of hope early on to get our spirits right. But streaks are only interesting because all streaks eventually come to an end. Everybody in that locker room felt like they got robbed of the win in Minneapolis, and when they went to Colorado, it was more of the same. The emphasis on protecting the ball has made the offense look drastically better, and with 2 games to establish the QB run with a new guy behind the center means the offense actually has a chance to prove some people wrong about how high their ceiling is. The talk's been about Nebraska's run D, and that's great, but they can't win games by themselves. At some point, you'll have to be able to force turnovers in the secondary and flip the field to help out the offense since they're a little bit less efficient, and just get them into good field position. I'm nervous for the defense. I'm still questioning some of these play calls on offense, and until Alvano can make a 40-yarder, I'm still skeptical about the field goal unit. But I won't lose hope, and I'll always believe there's a chance since I've seen crazier things happen. I won't pick an upset here because it just doesn't seem like the right time, but a 27-17 Michigan win would give me more reasons to believe this team's on the right track and that they'll be a contender in the West up until the very end. I was tired of talking about group of 5 matchups and looking for reasons to get excited, and now we're here. It might not feel like it, but this is the dream stage. At home, in the fall, in front of a sold out crowd, taking on the number 2 team in the country with some of the most recognizable names in the sport. Michigan's a team that starts slow, and at times Nebraska's been a team that starts fast. So if they force them to play from behind and JJ pushes a little harder to finish drives, turnovers could come into play. And then we've got a game that went from standard procedure to upset alert. I'll be live with College Football with Sam this Thursday at 7 p.m. Central to get his takes on this game. So I hope to see you there. But I want to know what you think. So let me know in the comments below. Is the defense prepared for a dual threat QB who's got 2 really good receivers, or do you expect more of the same? Is Corum going to break off some big runs, or do we see another big time performance from the top run D in America? And will Heinrich Haarberg do the impossible and pull off an upset in only his 3rd start as the quarterback? Usually I'd say I gotta see it to believe it, but I'm not flying halfway across the country because I think they're gonna lose. But that's all I got for today. So until next time, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.